Do you believe in moral victories? That's the important question that you need to ask about the Miami Dolphins season following the sixth loss of the year. The Dolphins are now 2-6 following a 30-27 loss to the Buffalo Bills, a game where the Dolphins put together a pretty spirited effort, kept it close the entire game, had a lead at periods of the game. However, Miami failed to get it done when a 61-yard field goal allowed the Buffalo Bills to pull off the victory. Right now, we got Isaiah Smalls joining us to sort of wrap up this season. Are we ready to pull the plug? Is it time to put the toe tag on the Miami Dolphins 2024 season, Isaiah?
Unfortunately, I believe it is. Time of death was 4:00 on Sunday. I mean, and it's an interesting question, right? The moral victories, right? Do you believe in moral victories? Because by my estimate, right, they played well enough to win. Like I think that they played well enough to win, right? That as Calais Campbell said at the end, 64-yard field goal. I'll take my chances 9 times out of 10, and that just happened to be that 10.
It was a 61-yard field goal.
61-yard. I'm sorry. 61-yard field goal. Take your chances at the end. It is what it is. But yes, it's about that time. Unfortunately, I mean, 2-6. It's a lot to overcome. I mean, like we've said multiple times on this podcast, stranger things have happened. I just don't see it though. Like, I mean, they're going into LA next week, and LA looked good this past week, and they're on a little bit of a run. And then it kind of just, they got to play the Jets twice. The Jets, look like they're getting rolling. I mean, look. I'm one of the few people that are not all out on the Jets yet, just because of the talent that they have. And again, they've won a game.
The Dolphins got talent. They play like they got talent. Two had 3 incompletions.
The 3 incompletions was crazy. Like we said though. Him being back though, he's not the savior. There are too many other holes that this team has. The mental mistakes killed them again. The 2 penalties on that last drive. Like, I was literally praising Chop Robinson for getting that first sack, and then 2 plays later, like he's neutral zone infraction. So it's just like 1 step forward, 2 steps back with this team.
Yeah, I really don't think the neutral zone infraction would have made a difference, because the pass that Josh Allen made, whether it was 3rd and 14 or 3rd and 8, it was still one hell of a pass. That's what elite quarterbacks do. I wanted to get your take on the Jordan Poyer penalty. And here's the reason why I asked, because I do believe that it was a penalty.
Yeah,
helmet to helmet. You are going, as a defender, you are going to get the flag every time. Earlier in the game, we saw Raheem Mostert rock the safety wrap.
Mm-hmm.
He initiated the contact.
Yes.
The defender got the penalty after getting rocked.
Yeah.
And we're just like, oh well, these are the rules. Well, these are the rules.
They are the rules.
When Jordan Poyer launches his helmet into Keon Coleman's helmet. Now, I was watching the end of the Rams-Seahawks game, and there was an identical play that happened at the end of that game that kind of led to overtime and probably would have put, I believe, Seattle in position to win that game if it had been called, just like the Jordan Poyer situation had been called. And the refs picked up the flag because the defender did not put his helmet on the offensive player's helmet. So we're talking inches. And I feel bad for Jordan Poyer, because when you're a defender, you're literally targeting zone. Like, we're talking about
split-second decisions. That's what people forget. Like, obviously we watch it on replay time and time again, but these are like happening within.
Yeah, and an offensive player lowers his head.
Yeah.
And was all of a sudden the zone has changed.
Yeah.
So even Raheem Mostert, Rap's play, his head was positioned to hit the target. And you know what Raheem Mostert did? He lowered his head. So it's kind of But this is the game that we play now in the NFL, which is about safety, and we don't want to see these concussions, and we don't want to see what happened to Chris Olave. Defenders need to have room and opportunity to catch the ball, to bring it down. So, yes, it cost them. But I will make this argument to you, Isaiah. Even if that field goal had missed, I don't have belief that the Dolphins would have used 41 seconds to drive down the field and get in field goal position.
No. I think that's a stretch. I definitely thought the game was going into overtime.
And I don't believe, and if we're going to be transparent, this is the Buffalo Bills. You playing daddy. I do not believe that you are going to beat daddy in overtime. If you did, then we could talk about the season turning, but we're not there. And where we are is 2-6. Now, we could say and talk about how much better of a team they are than a 2-6 record, but you are what your record says you are, and your record says you are one of the 5 bad teams in the NFL.
Yeah, no, that's real. That's real. And it's unfortunate, man, because, back-to-back weeks, with essentially a walk-off, field goal. Of course, there's a few seconds left, but it was 5 seconds. You're not really can't really do much with that. But it's tough. Like you talked about moral victories. I mean, there's really none. As Jay-Z said, moral victories are for minor league coaches. Like there's nothing there. Like great, you played well enough to win, but there was mistakes down the line that ended up costing the game. The defense couldn't stop anybody in the second half. What is it? 4 possessions in the second half for the Bills. All 4 of them they scored, including the first 3 being touchdowns. This is kind of what happens. You have to play perfect. When we had this podcast on Friday, I said they can't turn the ball over. What did Raheem Mostert do on the first play of one of the first plays of the second half? When the offense was running too, when the offense was getting going, it was one of those times where it's like, okay, this team looks unstoppable, right? But the minute that they start to look unstoppable, the minute that they start to you start to praise them a little bit, it's just like, something bad happens. So it's just like, it's frustrating. I can't even begin to imagine what the fans think because it's frustrating when I watch it.
Yeah. The question is, at what point do you check out on this season? And I know that's a question that the Dolphin fans have if they haven't already checked out. But I will give you a couple of reasons to not check out. The efficiency level that Tua Tagovailoa is playing with right now hints that he's still one of the NFL's elite passers. Mm-hmm. Now, pair that with the running game, which came 1 yard shy of the franchise's 4th 150 rushing effort. Yeah. Then you should have a good offense. And let's be real about it. The passing game hasn't even been going.
It really hasn't. And I know the numbers are kind of. I felt so bad for bettors at the end of the game when Jalen Waddle ended up getting tackled 20 yards behind scrimmage because his stat line was something 2 for 2, 2 catches, 2 targets, and -4 yards and a touchdown. It's like, yeah. But you're right. The offense hasn't shown its full potential because minus that play out, I think. Jalen Waddle 2 catches for 19 yards and a touchdown. The touchdown saved his day, but before that, Tyreek 4 catches for 80 yards. This isn't the offense that we were used to seeing, the high-powered offense that we're used to seeing. Because they found something in the running game, you kind of got to keep that going if it's going. And obviously, Devon Achane has been playing phenomenal, right? Just catching the ball and running the ball. So it's you got to keep feeding him. It's interesting though. This is not the offense that we're used to seeing at all.
No, I think there has to be a marriage, and obviously this is the second game back with Tua, and so the big plays are going to come. We know that's part of Tua's game. We know that's part of this offense. The question I have is Tyreek healthy? He's playing, but the question is he healthy? And I think this is something that's going to linger pretty much all season with the foot injury. Also, Jalen Waddle, outside of the touchdown catch, what has Jalen Waddle done all season? You could really ask that question. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in another segment I have, which is, buyer or seller for the Dolphins in terms of what they do heading into tomorrow's trade deadline. Yeah, man, trade deadline is here.
Yeah. No. I'm just interested to see that segue you said with Jalen Waddle, and I'm what? Okay.
I'm just saying. But here is my issue right now. Earlier in the season, we saw the Dolphins offense struggle drastically because of the quarterback situation. Not having Tua Tagovailoa led to some struggles, losing 3 of the 4 games that he didn't play. Now we get Tua back. Offense is scoring points, relatively humming. If I said to you that the Dolphins are going to average 27 points a game, I think you'd take it. Would you or would you not? No matter what the outcome is, I think you take it. But now we look at this defense where they've had opportunities to seal the game or at least preserve the game and have fallen short. Now, this week we saw a change in inside linebacker, which I will say I will clap it up for Mike McDaniel and Anthony Weaver. I like David Long Jr. as much as the next guy. But if you did not know that teams were attacking him, targeting him in the passing game, you are kidding yourself. And it's a great amount of awareness to see that. Take one of your captains, take one of your leaders, take one of your top run stoppers, and put in Anthony Walker, who's better from a coverage standpoint. That is a massive, massive change. And only the second time Mike McDaniel in 3 years has ever demoted a player. Durham Smythe was the first player who got demoted, lost his job to Julian Hill. This year, people will say whatever they want about Julian Hill. He's a superior run blocker. I promise you would have got that 1 extra yard if Julian Hill was.
If it was a fifth, we'd all be drunk, Omar.
You might have had an extra penalty, but you would have got that 1 extra yard.
Is the risk really worth the reward? I don't know.
And now we've got David Long. How did you take the David Long demotion?
Man, I was surprised because, like, I especially. Well, I mean, I was surprised only in the sense that, like, McDaniel doesn't do that, right? He doesn't demote players, right? So I was just like, yo, okay. But Anthony Walker played well. He played very well. Like, I think it was definitely an added bonus having him out there. And I think also it might have caught the Bills by surprise.
Yeah.
Too. And I think
the whole game plan was built on, we're going to attack David Long. We're going to attack David. Hold up, where David Long at?
And so I think that's interesting, though. Like, I think, Studesville said it last week in reference to the running back situation, right? But, like, there's an element of surprise that is good for you to have if you are an opposing team, right? Just when you're preparing for an opposing team, because it's like, look, like, we've had 7 weeks, six games worth of tape, right? Like, who we are in some respect, right? But if we, just throw that little wrinkle in there, I'm sorry, 7 weeks worth of tape. If you just throw that little wrinkle in there, like it's something that, obviously can throw off an offense a little bit because, I mean, Josh Allen played solid in the second half, and like there were some plays in the first half that you look watching him and like, good Lord, like this man is crazy, right? I gotta just on that point real quick. I got a message from somebody on Twitter on the second, I think, holding call or the first holding call when Josh Allen ran into the end zone. And like, I'm sitting there like, good Lord. And if you notice, there is a player who kind of gets close to him, but doesn't decide to hit him.
Oh, yeah, that's Jordan Poyer.
Yeah, and someone's like, oh, I didn't even see that. Okay, I didn't even know that. But someone asked me, he's like, yo, who was the player that was close to him? I was like, honestly, didn't really see. I'm kind of watching the game. Like,
yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not really mad at someone who doesn't want to go run and like go tackle a 6'5", 237 man at the 2-yard line. Like, that's just, what I'm saying?
It was Jordan Poyer. He made a business decision.
Yeah, that was a business decision. Yeah, that was a business decision. But
honestly, and I know people will be like, oh, he looking out for his buddy. No, Jordan Poyer made a business decision.
Yeah.
6'4", 260-pound quarterback.
Yeah.
6 foot, 190-pound safety. Like, it ain't going to end up well for you, bro.
It's not gonna work. But to answer your question, I mean, I was surprised just in the sense that McDaniel doesn't do that. But obviously it worked. I'm interested to see how they go forward. I mean, obviously we want David Long to be healthy, right? So whether that is resting him, a game or two, and then, trying to see how you go out there. But, obviously it's all about seeing how his body reacts to it this week, right? It's just
and I think that's an important thing because I noticed that Arizona was attacking David Long. Bills attacked him earlier in the season. He's been battling a knee injury back from training camp. It became a hamstring thing, as most people know. When you have something that you're compensating for, other muscles try to compensate for, and it leads to a slippery slope, which ultimately leads to, unfortunately, a season-ending injury. I thought it was smart on the Dolphins' part not only to address an area you knew a team was going to attack you with, but also giving him that rest that he needs. But what I did find very interesting is that David Long is not on the injury report from last week.
That was the part that also surprised me because he wasn't on the injury report. So
yeah, but players can avoid being on the injury report if they don't go to the training room. Now, why David Long would not go to the training room knowing that he's nursing an injury or being preventative, but hell, that's another subject. It's more for investigative reporting. If David Long don't want to go to the training room, he don't want to go to the training room. You know what I'm saying? He said after the game, and he told colleague Chris Perkins with the Sun Sentinel, I didn't get to talk to him because I didn't see him. I had other things that I was hunting down. He's got to play better and play better assignment football. And this is true. I mean, part of the assignment when you're an inside linebacker is pass coverage. If teams are going to attack you with running backs and tight ends, and that seems to be the way that teams are attacking Miami this season because their secondary has been pretty good. Passes to the running back like this Rice kid who I'm sorry, Ray Davis. Yeah. I mean, 2 missed tackles leads to a 63-yard touchdown. If teams can get that from you or teams can attack you with their tight end, they're going to do it. The Dolphins have to get better from that standpoint. And I think Anthony Walker could be the recipe that leads them to do that, especially until David Long gets healthy. Any other issues about that game that troubled you or concerned you? And I think we should mention that Jalen Ramsey pulled down quite an impressive turnover, snatching the ball out.
Yeah, that was beautiful. That was beautiful, especially considering what I had talked about with like the rookie receivers. I don't know if I said this on the podcast, but I noticed that rookie receivers were the only ones that were just getting the best of Jalen Ramsey this year. Brian Thomas Jr. With the long PI, and then he had a touchdown, and then Marvin Harrison Jr. Last week, right? And so I was interested just to see how this matchup goes. Keon Coleman has seemingly been improving obviously over the season. Amari Cooper has really opened up the offense for him. And so I was interested just to see how this matchup is going to go. Obviously, Cooper gets scratched right before the game. But just to see Jalen Ramsey kind of just have that little I know this rookie receiving class is good, but look, not everyone, you got to wake up real early to get one on me. That was dope. But to answer your question, for me, it's just the mental errors. Like at what point, I don't like to call teams undisciplined, right? Because I don't know the inner, you're around the team, right? But you don't know the inner workings of certain things. So I don't like to call that, but they played some really undisciplined football all season. And it's just, at what point are you going to start scratching your head and just wondering why is it, are we
But do you consider what you saw against Buffalo undisciplined?
No. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not calling, I'm just saying there's been mental error after mental error after mental error that just keeps plaguing this team. And it's just
8 penalties. 8 penalties, 57 yards, 8 penalties. I don't, when the Bills have 4 penalties for 40 yards, the Bills aren't going to beat themselves. But this has been an issue.
I don't know. 8 penalties. That's you're acting like that's not a lot of penalties. That's
what I'm saying. 8 penalties. No, I'm saying.
Okay.
8 penalties is a lot of penalties.
Okay. I just, and there was a few that were declined as well. So let's not, you know what I'm saying? I think I don't know how you solve this, right, without honestly demoting people. Because I feel like if you have this,
demoting?
Huh?
Who are you demoting? You act like there's backups everywhere.
There's not, and I guess that's part of the issue. I guess that's part of the issue.
What are you doing?
That's part of the issue. That's very much part of the issue because at this point, for me, along the offensive line, I hate seeing the holding penalties and it's just
it happens.
It happens. You're right, but it's just very frustrating. It's just unbelievably frustrating.
Who are you going to demote?
And that's what I'm saying. You don't have any. There's no depth. So it's not like it's a competitive job where if you demote somebody, someone else,
the next guy's gonna go in and take somebody's job.
Yeah, it's not. There's no competition. So it's just players are allowed to make mistake after mistake, and it's just all right, well.
Well, we talked a little bit earlier about the NFL trade deadline being Tuesday at 4 p.m. Now, here's my position on the NFL trade deadline. If I'm Chris Greer and somebody called me about a player on my team, they're going to have to blow me away, because why am I acquiring draft picks for the next dude? Because I have the opinion that, I'm sorry, when you look at this fundamental roster and you see how poorly this team is constructed, who somebody did it, and somebody has to be held accountable for it at the end of the season. I watched Chris Greer walk through the locker room with owner Steve Ross, and it looked like a man who was being taken to the principal's office. And it's, this is just the reality of where we are as an organization. At the end of the season, I do think that Chris Greer is going to be the guy that's going to pay the price for what happens this season. And the question that I have is, if you know that that's your reality, why would you trade pieces away that might help you get to 7 wins or get to 8 wins, and then you could excuse whatever happened this season on the loss of Tua Tagovailoa? But I will say this, for the right price, I do have 5 players that the Miami Dolphins should consider trading, and allow me to explain why. Okay. The first player on my list is Calais Campbell. And why? Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. You got to trade things that people might want. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, let's trade Jeff Wilson. Who wants Jeff Wilson? Like, the guy has been active the whole damn season. Like, and I like Jeff. That's my dog. You know what I'm saying? And I know Jeff can actually be a good back and contribute. But people want defensive linemen that could help them win a Super Bowl. Because the people who are trading for assets at this point and getting rid of draft picks for assets are the contenders. Could the Detroit Lions use Calais Campbell? I'm pretty damn sure that they could. Yeah, now, would I consider, if I'm Chris Greer, trading Calais Campbell for a 5th-round pick? Probably. But now that creates a snowball effect on my defense, because I already don't have no defensive tackles.
Yeah, you don't have any. Yeah. That's the only reason why. If I see a Calais Campbell, trade pop up on my news feed, I'm convinced that they punted on the season as well, because I don't.
These are all we're punting on the season situations here. Another guy I gave you example, perfect example, Javon Holland. Now, while he might be injured now with the hand and with the knee, Javon Holland's on an expiring contract. He is literally the only guy eligible for an extension that did not get one this offseason. Now, whether it was because he's asking for too much, or because the team can't put adequate value on him, or the team needs to see if he can stay healthy, I don't know what the issue is. But we are heading towards an impending divorce, in my opinion. Now, you will potentially get a compensatory pick for the loss of Javon Holland. But either you sign him to a contract that you don't necessarily feel that he's worth, or hasn't proven that he's worth, especially coming off this year where he's battling a couple of injuries, or you move him now for what you would have gotten in that compensatory pick. I'm thinking, based on the formula, and this is just a guess, Javon Holland was a 2nd-round pick. He's probably going to make, let's say, $21 million in guaranteed money over his next deal. That pretty much is $7 a year. I would say that you probably will get a maybe 3rd or 4th-round compensatory pick. Would I trade him now for a 2024 3rd or 4th rounder, or let him go and then get a 2025 compensatory pick for him?
Are you asking me?
Yeah. What you doing?
Okay. It's basically the same thing. What you just said. I mean, like, if it depends how healthy he is. Like, if he's raring to go, like, next week, why trade him? Especially if you think that you could, if there is potential to work out a deal down the line.
Yeah. There's always potential to work out a deal.
I think you would trade him. I wouldn't trade him just because of the secondary. It's been one of the stronger units of the team, right? Any chance you start hitting, like, chipping away at that's not a good thing. Of course, Marcus May is still there, right? Like, and so it's Marcus May is definitely, in terms of when we're talking about depth and positions, that's a position that I feel like is very well from the depth standpoint. But I would just, God forbid he walked, you get the compensatory pick. But I would, I'd stand pat.
Yeah. And keep in mind that he's on an expiring contract. Teams generally don't trade for players on expiring contracts. Now the Dolphins have when they traded for Bradley Chubb, but the Dolphins do things differently than some other teams do. Here's another one that and I'm gonna give you two that could be in the pull the plug kind of situation. Teron Armstead, pillar of this Dolphins defense. I mean, some teams need offensive linemen now. Now, Teron, you're already in position to move off from him. You drafted Patrick Paul. You're developing Patrick Paul. At some point, he has to get in. Now, Teron is the anchor of one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. This season, they are having a good year from an offensive line standpoint. Now, do you trade Teron to a contender, remove him from this team, and invest in Patrick Paul? And what price would it have to be for you to consider this?
My price would be too high. I'm gonna be honest.
Put a price on it.
I want at the very least a second rounder. I'm gonna be honest with you. I know. That's what I'm saying. Exactly. I'm like, look, like my price is too high. So I because of just what he brings to the team, like just from a elder statesman point of view, like he is, one of those guys that just is all like when you think about like the picturesque NFL guy, like he's one of those guys, like a guy that didn't come from a big school, that really got his way to the top. Like I think he's one of those guys that I feel like you're trading away a piece of the soul of the team, right? I wouldn't do that. And plus, like I said, he's still playing at an elite level. Like he is the reason why that offensive line.
I mean, you technically be trading a Pro Bowl. I think your price is a little high, but I can understand where you're coming from.
Like I said, my price is too high. I wouldn't trade him away. And plus, like Patrick Paul was good, but if you remember all the feedback from coaches after that game, in which we all thought he played like okay,
we all thought he was like, all right.
Yeah, you knew that there was gonna. Yeah, all the coaches were like, no, so much to work on. So I don't think you do that. And I feel like Mike McDaniel wouldn't let that happen. I'm gonna be honest.
No. I mean, we're all. Here's the thing, and that's the thing people don't realize. Teams don't want your garbage.
No, that's real. That's real.
They want your real players. And Raheem Mostert now could be a player.
Is that the last one?
What do you say?
Is that the last name that you're about?
No. I got another one for you. But I'm just saying, Raheem. At this point, the fan base has turned on Raheem. And now, I do not agree because Raheem is a reliable, consistent contributor. Yes, he's fumbled 2 out of the last 3 games, and those fumbles have contributed to your losses. But Raheem is a pillar. He's reliable. He's consistent. He helps you. But a contender, let's say the 49ers say, hey, we don't know our situation with McCaffrey. We might let me holler at you. Let me holler at you.
Him back.
Huh?
Unless their backup Jordan Mason, who's looked pretty serviceable all year. I know
anything can happen.
He's definitely dealing with some injuries as well, so who knows? But I just No, okay, I see what you're saying. I'm saying
for a fourth, you don't pick up the phone and be like, hey, 4th round pick.
Yeah. No, that's a good one. Yeah. No. Yeah, I mean, I would.
You do the deal?
I mean, a 3rd would be too high. I feel like 3rd would be pushing people away. So 4th, yeah, I would do it. Yeah, especially because obviously Jalen, right? You got to see what you have there. Jeff Wilson will be depending. Like I'm saying, if you don't throw him, if you trade away Raheem, obviously Jeff Wilson has to get in now. Jeff Wilson obviously has played better than the stats show, right? Just in times he's been a spark plug for this offense. So, I mean, I guess I would. Yeah.
You listen. Now, hear me out on the last one. Okay. All right. Jalen Waddle, $21 million a season is what you've decided to pay Jalen Waddle in a 5-year, $109 million deal. Are you getting $21 million worth of a wide receiver?
No, but also you realize that like the first that 4-game stretch where there's no Tua really put a dampen on everybody's numbers. But I get what you're saying. He's definitely out there.
Even when you had 4 games with Tua,
he's been just basically doing cardio like for the past couple of games. And it's kind of. But I don't think that's his fault though. Like I would say, like obviously if you're a receiver, like the quarterback has to get you the ball. It's not like he's going out there and just dropping everything, right? Like he hasn't really been targeted. Why he hasn't really been targeted is beyond me. I don't know. And hopefully that is something that will change, over time. I think that's going to be one of my questions for Mike McDaniel today. Is like, just how do you feel about just Jalen Waddle's target share? Obviously, like he is one of those, elite players on your offense, but the numbers don't show it, the targets don't show it. Something has to be happening behind the scenes. I'm not saying that there is. I'm just saying but there has to be something, right?
Somebody offers you a first round pick. You saying no?
Oh, no, I'm not. Boy, it depends what team. Like if that first round pick is going to be in the high 20s. I don't know about that. But if it's going to be like in the,
we're talking about contenders here. Nobody's trading for Jalen Waddle if they're not.
Okay, oh yeah, sorry.
If we're not the Kansas City Chiefs or the Baltimore Ravens, and they think that they're one player away, what you doing? Baltimore offering you first for Jalen Waddle. You say what?
Wow. Oh my God. I'd say no. Yeah.
All right.
I'd say no because if you look at the receiver room now, again, it's decimated. Like it's just Tyreek Hill. Odell finally got involved last week, but then it's like River Craycraft, D. Eskridge.
Hey, don't disrespect River Craycraft.
I'm not disrespecting anybody. I'm just saying that like where the NFL is nowadays, like you really have to have two number one receivers. It's really 1A and 1B, right? And you have that. Obviously, the production hasn't been there. Something. I don't know. I feel like every time that like we've asked, Mike McDaniel specifically about a player, like the next game we see a little bit more from them. Like obviously, like Odell, we were scratching our heads a little bit about Odell, like what's going on. I don't think we've given up faith. We're just like, where is he in the offense? A couple targets, last game. All right. I think the same thing is going to happen with Jalen this week. I feel like because once it's a lot of times in the NFL, because of how much of a lag time there is between one game and the next, we kind of like overanalyze certain things. And I feel like Jalen Waddle, you're right. It hasn't been good. It hasn't been good at all. It hasn't been.
Even with Tua, it hasn't been good.
Yeah, you're right. But again, like this, like you look at the numbers for the last game, it's gonna look crazy because you have that -4 yards. Obviously, if you weren't watching the game, you know that last play was a little bit disappointing. But at the same time, I feel like you can't just punt on Jalen Waddle right now. Like Jalen Waddle has consistently been a 1,000-yard receiver basically since he came in the league. Like I wouldn't be quick to just. I mean, 3-10 on the year. Like
far off that pace right now, but
very far. But that's what happens when you lose your starting quarterback for 4 games. That's what happens.
All right. Well, that is it for Dolphins in Depth podcast. We will be back on Wednesday, I believe, later this week. It's a Monday night game against the Los Angeles Rams, and we will be here covering your team. Now, obviously, if they decide they want to ship and shop some people on tomorrow's trade deadline, we'll be back tomorrow. Emergency pod. All right, folks. We'll see you later.
Peace.